Right, we're live here on Friday, 17th April. Thank you for joining us. I see a couple of people in the chat, so let me just see where we're at. We've got 34 people connected at the moment as far as I can see. And again, we're gonna be on this live stream for about an hour. Welcome. I ask that you contribute, engage, listen with curiosity, ask questions, and enjoy. If it's boring, let me know. So let's go over to chat cam. So here we are. Maria, Reino, Mohammed, great to see you in the chat. Susan, great to see you in the chat. It's Friday. We're now on week 5 of quarantine. And today I'm wearing my Vistage shirt, which comes from the motto for this year of Vistage, which is we rise together. We rise by raising up others. And part of the theme of this conversation is this idea of rising by raising up those around us. Yuka, welcome. Wahida, welcome. Nadine, great to have you on here so I can see the chat coming in. What I'd love right now is just where are you from? Place and city in the chat. Just let us know where are you connecting from around the world. Suda from India, Joaquim, Lisbon, tudo bem. Let us know where you, Omar from Mexico, Wahida from Paris. Great to have you on the chat here. And what I plan to share in the session here together, you might see down over here, you see the image of a buffalo. And I'm going to tell you the story of why the buffalo is appearing as an icon on my chat. Mary Jo from Belfast, great to have you. Sirin, Dubai, Wahida, yeah, rise together. I think one of my mentors says, we rise by lifting others. And it's a wonderful attitude, this idea, we rise by lifting others. I think depression and stress is when you're thinking about yourself. The moment you can turn your view outwards and look at others and think, how can I rise up others? You stop worrying so much about yourself, and usually you cure whatever depression, angst or stress that you were feeling yourself. So I'm going to be sharing the buffalo story to tell you why this particular icon has started to appear on my blog, on my YouTube channel, and what that means. And for that, let's switch over to our story cam here. We've still got our little logo here. I'm getting good at left and right. And I want to tell you the buffalo story. So some of you who've been in my courses in IESE or the speeches I've given around the world may have heard the buffalo story. I'm going to tell it here again. So Florian, I want you to take some notes and let me know, what do I do well? Where could I improve? How to get even better with the buffalo story. So in the United States, there's an area called the Great Plains. And the Great Plains is an area of the United States where it's completely flat. There's no mountains, there's no sea. It's just 1,000 miles of plains. And in the Great Plains of the United States of America, you find 2 great herds of animals. One of these herds, for time immemorial, has existed in this place and is perfectly evolved for the Great Plains of the United States. The second herd is a herd of animals that came across from Europe on the boats as the explorers and the migratory movement of European peoples into America. The cows. And on the plains, the Great Plains, you find great herds of buffalo and great herds of cows. And every year as the summer comes, these great herds know that storms are coming. And the storms on the Great Plains of the United States are not just any storm, they are great storms. And out of the dark clouds of the storms fall hailstones the size of a golf ball. And the buffalo and the cows know that when these hailstones fall and they hit them on their back, it really hurts. It's agony. So each summer, as the clouds start to form over the ocean, the cows and the buffalo know what's coming. And When the clouds start forming, the cows, when they see the dark clouds over the ocean, they start to run, running away from the clouds. And the clouds start to move towards the mountains over the Great Plains. And the cows are running. The clouds keep moving, the cows are running. And eventually the clouds reach a point where the clouds are over the early part of the herd of cows. Do you know what the cows do just in this moment when they're just underneath the cloud? They keep running. And do you know what you achieve if you keep running under something that moves slightly faster? You maximize the agony. The cow's response maximizes the time that they are being showered by these hailstones the size of golf balls. They maximize the pain. What do the buffalo do? The clouds are forming over the ocean. The buffalo eating grass. The clouds are moving. The cows have started running. The buffalo eating grass. The clouds are now over the plains. The cows are over the horizon. The buffalo eating grass. We reach the point where the cows are all over the horizon. The clouds finally arrive and a hailstone falls and hits the back of the first buffalo. And at this moment, the whole herd of buffalo, every single buffalo, they turn as one and they charge directly into the storm, crossing through the storm as quickly as possible. And in everything in life, every time a challenge comes to you, there's two ways that you can respond to challenge: as a cow or as a buffalo. Every time in one of my programs, I ask for a volunteer. And volunteering means you put your hand up and you take a risk. There are those that respond like buffalo. They put their hand up, they say, I'm scared, but I'm going. And there are those that inside their chest, they find the beating heart of a cow. And to me, this stance, the only heroic stance in life, is to go towards the difficulty, go towards the pain. I think there's a book called The Road Less Traveled. And for me, very powerful on the stance that you take towards life. The moment that you accept that life is hard, it's going to be full of challenges. And that the only heroic way is to go towards the challenge, to go towards the difficulty. When you go to the gym, go to the heavy weights. When you're going for a run, go a little bit further. If you can push yourself into the pain, if you can have the courage to do what's difficult each day, each moment in front of every problem, that's how you build courage. That's how you build confidence. That's how you build others seeing what type of person you are. And that's how you put yourself in a position that when the crisis comes, when the crisis grows, you've been practicing having a buffalo attitude, a courageous attitude, and going into the problem and not trying to hide from the thing, not trying to run away, but going into the problem. So I hope in the chat right now you could just put a word. What stance are you currently taking towards life? Are you trying to hide from the problems, trying to reduce the challenges that you face? Or are you seeking to go into what's difficult? So just put a word in the chat, either buffalo or cow. And what I hope we see is a lot of beating, hearting, heroic buffalo here in the chat. So let's go back over to chat cam. So chat cam. We've got some questions coming in, some places coming in. Yuka, thank you. Yeah, I love this story. Oleski, this is an American Indian story, and there is a Wikipedia page that talks about. It comes from an old American Indian tribe about the attitude of courage, the attitude of the warriors, and the buffalo courage. So it comes from the American Indians, and I need to find out exactly the first person who shared this story that reached down to me. But in a way, what's powerful about a great story is not whether it's factually true, but whether it resonates with you. And often novel writers say that the most powerful story is not a true story. It's a story that so captures an essential way of being of humanity, that sometimes a made-up story can be more powerful than a true or real story. And when you're telling stories, the aim is not to be factually correct. The aim is to capture the essence, the value at the core of the story in a way that the audience hear it and are called to want to be a better version of them. And I'm glad to see Florian, buffalo at its best. I see some good buffaloes. Dale, an actual buffalo in Nebraska. And Nebraska, I don't know if Nebraska is part of the Great Plains of the United States. Omar used to be a cow, but looking to become a huge buffalo. And I think there's another American Indian story that I may have shared here about a grandfather Indian is speaking to his grandson, and he says, each of us, each human being carries on their shoulders two wolves, the good wolf and the bad wolf. And the young grandson asks his grandfather, which of the wolves is going to win? The grandfather answers, the one you feed. And courage is not a state that you get into, it's a practice. You practice being courageous in the little things. You practice being courageous in the medium things. And if you practice being courageous in the little and the medium things, in your relationships, in telling people what they need to hear, in giving feedback in a way that isn't hurtful, but is clear with the other what they need to hear. If you have courage in the little things, if you have courage in the medium things, then you'll find that you have belief and confidence when you face the big challenges in life. So, Florian, a made-up story more powerful. Never heard that. So I think, a fable is a made-up story. And often a fable is taking something that is true, that resonates, but clearing away the jumble and the mess and reducing it down to the essence of the story. So it begins to be less about the factually true things in the world and begins to be more about the core value and the contrast between having it and not having it. And the 1908 Amundsen and Scott story is the fable of the tortoise and the hare, but put in the clothes of a grown-up story. And I would advise anyone who wants to get good at telling stories to look for Aesop's fables. Aesop was a figure back in the Middle Ages who gathered together all the fables, the mythical stories that were passing through the peoples of Northern Europe. And he gathered them together, and it's just this compendium of fables, which are simplified stories. It probably happened for real in the world, but you simplify it down and take the essence. And in that story, it passes to people not just the idea, but a desire to be a certain type of person. Pablo from Bilbao, hello from Coruña, Lahore, Pakistan, Morad from France, Elias from Malaysia. We have XXODD. What books would you recommend to improve your public speaking? Well, that's a good question. Let's go back to TalkCam for what books would I recommend to improve public speaking? And I think more than any book, it's practice. And what I'm doing today, speaking into the camera, of repeating stories that I've already told, but also answering questions and trying to put sense into the camera. Here I am alone, but I have to imagine that behind this lens in front of me, there are 90, 100 people, and I'm paying attention to how I communicate with words. I think the greatest practice that you can begin to become a great speaker is to turn on a webcam, turn on a video every day for 3 minutes and just record yourself. And today you can switch it on, recording, testing, 1, 2, 3, turn it off, delete it. 3 minutes every day, switch on a camera, speak to it. When you're finished, watch it once, think what could you do better, what did you do well, and then delete it. And day after day after day, just do that practice. Once you do that practice, day after day, you start to pay attention to the world in a different way. You start to be thinking about, what am I going to talk about today on my video? The other thing is, it needs to be a practice. It needs to be that you record the video, you watch it once, and you delete it. You're not making these for YouTube. You're not making these to save them and send them to your kids. It's a place where you just practice. And in life, if you want to get good at something, there has to be practice. The soccer players spend more time in practice than they do playing. They play for 90 minutes on a Saturday, but they practice every day 5-6 hours. Your way of doing that same level is don't wait till you're standing on the stage. Switch your webcam on and give your speech now. Give it tomorrow. Give it the next day. Instead of writing the perfect speech, give a really crappy speech. Write down one thing you'd improve, one thing you did well, and do it again. Do it again. It's the repetition of saying in words the things that make sense to you, the things that mean a lot to you. I think another important thing in becoming good at public speaking is clarity in thinking, in having a point of view on life. And for that, I would go back to the habit that I've recommended a couple of times. I don't know if Harshad is on here, but writing in a journal. Capture ideas in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. Capture what's happened to you today. Capture the stories that you hear. If you hear something good on this YouTube live stream, put it down in your journal and write it out. And then tomorrow, practice telling the story yourself. So if the buffalo story, practice telling that tonight. Tell it tomorrow. Tell it until you've found your way of sharing it. And I guarantee, even if you took that story and tried to copy it exactly, you're going to put your own values into the way you tell a story. So as a speaker, not copy and paste, but listen, take in the stories that you hear from others and tell them. And even if you try and copy word for word what you heard from me, you're going to put what you heard, what you value, what was important into the way you tell it. And it will have an impact on people that is different than the impact that I would give in telling the same story. So rather than any book, the way you get good at public speaking is switching on the webcam and writing notes every day in a journal. Writing the questions you have, writing the people that inspire you, writing the stories that have moved you, writing the things that let you down, the things that raised you up. And if you just capture that day after day after day, you'll never run out of ideas. You'll never run out of questions. You'll never run out of things to be grateful for. And one of the things that great public speakers have is just a massive library of stories. And instead of having 2 or 3 stories, they cover everything. They've got thousands of stories saved up from their journals, from listening, from paying attention, from practicing on the videos. So my recommendation is don't read so much as just switch a camera on 3 minutes every single day and say something. What will happen once you begin that is you start to pay attention in a different way. And then YouTube videos, Google searches for good books, then they'll start to come up. But if you're not doing the practice, no book is going to help you become better as a speaker. I guess it's like reading a book on having a 6-pack and not going to the gym. You can read all the books in the world about how to work out in a gym, but it's pointless if you don't go to the gym. You can read all the books on public speaking, on structuring speeches, but if you don't work out, and the way of working out today, and even more in quarantine, is switch on a video there in your home, your mobile, a camera, anything, and say something. And that practice will have far more impact than the tools you use, than the books you read, than what's sat on the shelves behind you. Now let's head back to chat cam again here. Julio Vildasola, great to have you here. I look forward to surfing in Sri Lanka when this is done. Nuria Aspetia, where in the world is Aspetia? Florian, yeah, lighting inspired by you, Flo. Thanks for showing what good lights can do. Wahida, yeah, the buffalo logo, unless you've been in one of my programs, you probably don't understand the meaning of buffalo. Reino, the buffalo story was more powerful the earlier time I heard it. Was that told through camera or was that told face to face? But I definitely find that my switch from face to face to video, I lose something in not seeing other humans reacting, in not having the whole space of being able to stand up and move as I tell a story. And I find much more tiring speaking into this little hole. There's nothing coming back. When I'm standing in a classroom up at IESE Business School and there's 70 people looking back, all the energy I'm giving out is coming back to me. Here, I'm putting energy out, and it's very hard to keep finding energy to put out. So I definitely need to work at getting better at projecting an energy and finding the way of telling stories in a video, the same power that I think I'm able to do when I'm face to face. So Carlos Cifuentes, yeah, start writing, then start speaking, and repeat. It's the practice that matters, not the tools, not what you know. Mutaz, need books on leadership. Would you recommend some good books? So on my blog, there's a page of 26 recommended books, and perhaps they're broken into 3 categories: on communication, on leadership, and biographies. I think the greatest books for learning about leadership are biographies. Not textbooks that tell you how it should be done, but stories of someone's life that show how they specifically dealt with the challenges that came to their life. One of the biographies that I really got a lot out of was a book called Titan, which is the biography of Nelson Rockefeller, who I think on inflation adjusted terms is the richest man that has ever lived. If you adjusted the fortune that he had in the 1880s to today's money, it would be about 400 billion. And Titan is the story of Nelson Rockefeller, who went from a small wooden hut without plumbing. His father was not really around when he was young. They didn't get on at all. And he went from there to build an oil business and identify a niche in a very difficult time, and then control a monopoly on the oil business, building the business called Standard Oil. But you see the challenges that he faced as a young man, as a 20, 30, 40-year-old, the decisions he had to take, how it shaped him, the way people treated him. There was a moment in his life where he set up the University of Chicago. So the University of Chicago was founded by Nelson Rockefeller, and quite a bit of the book is about his vision for a university and the difficulty he had in getting people around him who could help build that vision that he had for the University of Chicago. So Titan, the biography of Rockefeller. Another biography that I would recommend is Gandhi, and I can't remember the title, but it's Experiments, something about experiments on himself, and it's really just him experimenting with self-discipline. And I think that the book, Gandhi's biography, focuses more on his early life before he was famous, and he was already practicing self-discipline, practicing becoming someone that no matter how big the chance of corruption became, he wouldn't be tempted by that corruption. And I think there were a few things he did in his youth that he didn't like how he acted, and it pushed him to really work on himself and develop courage in every little thing that he did, courage in every relationship, courage in every moment of his life. He didn't wait for difficulty to practice courage. He practiced it every day in the way he carried himself, in the way he ate his food, in the way he prepared his food, in the way he conducted his relationships with his wife, with his family, with the people around him. So reading that would be good. And Malcolm Gladwell is recommended. Outliers. I think the core idea of the book is good, but Malcolm Gladwell is a wonderful storyteller. If I could write a book as well as Malcolm Gladwell, that would be something. I love the way Malcolm Gladwell is able to just use story after story to build these ideas, and you just think, wow. So Outliers. Let's go and see what we're going here. Gandhi. My Experiments with the Truth. Thank you, John Zimmer, for that. X-ray vision. Nelson is not a favorite of mine. Is this Nelson Mandela or Nelson Nadine? Let's switch over to, so how do I rate myself as a buffalo in the current storm? I think actually the hard thing for me is sitting still. And the practice that I've taken these 5 weeks is not so much going active and going out and doing a lot of stuff. It's sitting still. And I think I shared of the most important lessons that I've learned, that number one, I believe, is the wisdom prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. Give me the strength to change what I can change. Give me the patience to accept what I cannot change. And give me the wisdom to tell the difference. And, most of the time I have this need to go out there and do stuff. And the thought of being held in my home, held within these four walls, not allowed to go out to do sport, not allowed to go out and meet people, not allowed to go out and sell, not allowed to go engage, not allowed to go out and build my business, speak on stages. If you'd asked me January or February, how would I handle it? I would say impossible. In some way, the courage I've had is to not fill my days with busyness. And in some ways, take these 5 weeks as a reset here at home. Often, as soon as I feel a slightly bit of boredom or a bit of frustration, I just get my gear on, go out, either go to the park, go up to Montevideo and go for a run, go out to IESE, meet someone, go to Circolo Equestre, meet someone. The thought of just staying home, just reading books, just writing in my journal, just watching Netflix, not going out. What I think is, I've been at peace with myself in the last 5 weeks in a way I haven't been in 25 years. And I guess in me there's a very high dose of FOMO, fear of missing out. And in a way, what coronavirus has done for me, on the one hand, it's been horrific on a business and an income level for me and for my business. So there are some worries on a professional side. There's massive drop off in revenue, in income for me compared to what I was able to earn in the last year, 2019. But in terms of patience to accept what I cannot change, in that, if that is something where you can have buffalo courage, each morning I've thought about how to use this time here with family, here with my 4-year-old daughter, my 13-year-old daughter, my wife, just here at home. This morning, myself and my 4-year-old daughter, we designed a board game together. And we probably spent 2-3 hours just on a big, we'd stuck 2 bits of A4 sheet together and we're designing a game between us. One of the hard things I find is when I'm doing a project with my wife or my daughters, to not take over and dominate. And I think over the last 5 weeks, there's been some times, especially when myself, my 4-year-old and my wife, we've made little videos. So we've made a remake of Frozen here in our house. We've made Goldilocks and the Three Bears. We've made the Big Bad Wolf and the Three Little Piggies. And I filmed and acted, and my daughters have been playing parts in it. There are days where it's a common project, where we're each inputting and we're each part of it. There's days where a nasty part of me takes over, dominates, and pushes my will in. And I think probably what takes the greatest courage right now, the greatest strength, is to stop trying to dominate and push my ideas when I'm doing these little projects with my daughters. And if they're to develop this idea of rise up, if they're to rise up, it's not by me telling them what to do. It's by me working with them in little projects where I allow them to tell me what to do. I offer my idea as one more idea, not the idea, the right idea. So rather than my buffalo stance for Corona times being going out into the world and leading a big thing, it's almost doing something that's really hard for myself, which is on these projects playing a backseat, not pushing my ideas as the most important, letting them take a lead. And I fail quite often. I get frustrated with myself. I realize on a couple of our movie projects, my vision for how I want the movie to be has become more important than the relationships and the fun that we can have in the process of making it. So I do let myself down often when I put the quality of the vision higher than the quality of the enjoyment as human beings and how we relate to each other as we go through the process. And I think this is a common flaw in Conor, that I can get quite fixated on a vision, on a project, an outcome, and quite quickly forget about the people as I focus headlong on achieving a certain outcome. So perhaps a reflection for me is how to value the human beings and the relationships as we are on a journey towards a finished product, and how to let others put ideas in that I can be open to in a way that I'm very often not. And I guess my life for the last 17 years is I'm an entrepreneur. I'm the founder. I have people do what I say. I often don't have much money to do it, but I've spent 17 years where pretty much people are waiting for me to take the lead. And it's a real challenge for me to not dive in and when there's a bit of uncertainty, take everything over and put my own structure in place. I think our children don't just need to learn techniques and content. They need to learn how to decide what's important and what's not important. They need to learn how to put order in a team, how to put structure so that we can decide between ourselves and all be happy with not just the decision we take, but the process, and feeling that all of us were involved in that process. And I think here at home there's two in their 40s. I have a 13-year-old and a 4-year-old. It's very easy that the 4-year-old is sidelined in the decisions at home. And I think she has just as much need to feel that she's contributing. She's deciding what games we're going to play. She's deciding what breakfast, lunch and dinners we're going to have. And that's a hard thing for me. My wife is much, much better at allowing our 4-year-old to take the lead on deciding what she wants to eat, when she wants to play, what we're going to play, how we'll change the rules within games. I tend to have a fixed mindset around how the game is supposed to be. So when we're playing cards and halfway through Sophia says, can we do this, or we're going to do that, or we're going to do it in teams, I'm very rigid. No, the game is played this way. And part of my practice is becoming less rigid in the way things have to be, less rigid in the speed with which we have to get to the outcome. And nothing in my life has given me patience and the ability to sit still as coronavirus. And I think a big element is that the fear of missing out. Well, there's nothing to miss out on. There's nothing happening out here. No one else is going out. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I'm useless in helping anyone who has conditions. I don't sell food. I'm not a pharmacist. I'm useless in providing the basic needs to people. I guess the lucky thing is teaching, speaking, motivating, giving people self-belief, asking them to challenge themselves. This is something I can do via video. This is something that a couple of hours each day I can come in here and feel like I am still a contributor in this world. And a big question I have is, 3 billion people at home, not all of them are going to find a way of feeling useful, feeling like they're contributing, feeling like they're significant during this time. And Viktor Frankl told us that there's 6 basic human needs that we must have fulfilled to have a fulfilling life. And the bottom 2 are safety and variety. So safety, we need to know there's a roof over our head and there's food on our table. Variety, there needs to be some changes. If each day is the same, we get bored. So safety and variety. The next level is significance and connection. And I worry how we can make sure that everyone around us has these social needs. Connection is not that you're connected, but you're missed if you're not there. There are groups that if they meet and you're not there, someone's going to call you and say, it's not the same without you. So connection isn't that you are part of meetings. Connection is knowing that if you didn't go, they would miss you, and feeling that deeply, that you are an important part of things. Significance is when you have something to say, there's people that stop and listen. And through YouTube here, through seeing who's watching this, and let's see who's watching this. We have 90 viewers right now. So my little need for prestige, need to feel significant, is being met by you great people listening. And you may be watching TV in the background with this on mute, but you're giving me a sense that what I'm doing has some level of significance. And I think for those around of us, I thought of how to let them know that we're missing them. And when we're speaking to them, to listen when they have an idea and let them know that we value their ideas. Because connection and significance, not all kids at school get that feeling of connection and get that feeling of that their words, their ideas, their contribution is an important part of the class. And if you've got the base one, survival, safety and variety, if you've got the next level, connection and significance, the highest level of fulfillment in Viktor Frankl's model would be contribution and growth. Contribution is really feeling that there's a unique thing that you have to give to the world, and you're finding it and you're being able to give it out to the world. So this contribution, knowing that there's something happening in the world that wouldn't happen this way if it wasn't for my time. There's a project that only I can complete it in the way that only I can do. And growth, a sense that today I'm better than yesterday, and tomorrow I'm going to be stronger, better, wiser, better than today. And these are the pinnacle ones of feeling that each day you're doing something that means tomorrow is going to be better. You're going to start from a better place. You're going to start with more skill. You're going to start with better relationships, more trusting relationships, more resources than yesterday. And growth is not necessarily just more money. Growth in skill, growth in connection, growth in depth of your relationships, growth in wisdom, growth in how many books that you've read. So what I hope for you is that for the important people around you, connection and significance, you let them know that you miss them. You let them know that what they see, what they have, their experience matters, and you love it when they share it. Contribution, you let them know that without them, what you're doing wouldn't be possible at the level. Your organization wouldn't be the same without them. And it's so good that they're continually contributing. And growth, I think, is both showing in your own life that each day you're taking on challenges that raise you up, but pushing others to keep their growth, pushing others to remember that they're capable of so much more than sometimes they think. And I guess this attitude of if you help others, if you raise others up, by accident it comes back to you. And there's an idea that the most powerful force in humanity is reciprocity. And the law of reciprocity is what I give out freely, what I give as a gift will come back. Our human brain is hardwired that if I receive a gift from you, I need to return that gift to the world. It may not be to you, but I need to return that gift. And the important thing is it has to be given and received as a gift. If I say, I'll do this for you if you do this for me, that's not a gift, that's a transaction. A gift is I have no strings attached. I have no interest at stake. I am giving something to you. And whether you give anything back or not is independent. I make a choice to give freely something to you. It might be a compliment. It might be coaching. It might be a kind word. It might be a project. It might be a connection to someone that I think you would value from getting to know. It might be a book that I think you could read. But giving it freely. When you give it freely, it comes back to you. When you give it with strings attached, it comes back as an ugly, dirty form of itself. The more you try and cling on and control the gifts that you give, the less they're gifts, they're just transactions. And when there's transactions, there's friction and nothing really comes back to you. I found that the greatest opportunities that come back into my life come from me giving out, connecting people, giving someone a project, giving someone a start in public speaking, giving someone an opportunity that they haven't yet had. And years later, they still remember. And some of the greatest things that have come into my life have come not because I've done some transaction, because freely I just gave someone an opportunity, gave someone some feedback, gave someone a word of encouragement in a moment that mattered. So we're gonna switch back to chat cam here. Chat cam. We've got Fahid from Lebanon, Ziarlin from Libya. Hello, Libya. Olivia, hey, great to have you here, Olivia. And I can imagine I was the oldest kid in my family, but to be the youngest of 3 kids, I need to be very aware that Sophia, very often when she's shouting or it's angry, it's because we're not allowing her voice to be heard. And when she has to shout and has to cry, it's not because she's crying, it's because myself, I haven't created a place where she has felt heard. Oleski, what about discipline of a 4-year-old? We have a book here at home called The Tao of Parenting, T-A-O, Tao, the book of wisdom of Asia. And the Tao of parenting just has this acceptance: the more you try and control, the less you actually control. I think we do have some structures that we put in place and try and reduce the negotiation. But I want my 4-year-old to be a great leader, and that means she needs to be a great negotiator. So I'm willing to accept that there's negotiation at breakfast time, at lunchtime, at dinner time, at bedtime, especially at bedtime. Every night there's a prolonged set of negotiations as she asks for a little bit longer, one more game. One of her favorite words is this one, but just the lastest, just one more, the lastest game. And as much as it frustrates me, at this time, what else are we going to do? What am I going to do? Put her to bed and watch TV? So I think last night she managed to get an extra hour and a half extending games, adding more to the games, playing more. And whilst it might have been nice to put her to bed and have it all cleaned and just sit in my office here and do some email, when am I going to get the opportunity to be at home week after week and see my kids growing and see what matters to them and see what type of games excite them and how they play and how winning and losing affect their morale? So I am no wise person on discipline. I think what I really learned back when I went bankrupt and divorced, the book The Anatomy of Peace by Arbinger Institute, and in fact we can pull it out here. The Anatomy of Peace would be my recommendation of what to read before you think about disciplining, controlling any other person. And the story in this book for me really landed on to what degree do I have a right to impose my will? How do I start to learn to create a place where the other desires to be part of it? And I definitely wasn't good at that in family for a long time. I imposed my will on my elder daughter. Luckily, she's strong-willed enough and we negotiated enough, and she's put a lot of herself into our family. And I hope our 4-year-old, we are better at allowing her to participate and construct and not just be a passive receiver of control and discipline at home. Sebastian, Laura, great to have you on here. Sebastian, great to see you starting on live streams. Florian, you have started a trend. There's a number of people here that I think since Florian began live streaming on YouTube. Sebastian, I saw you there last week. Excellent. Let's see. Mohammed from Morocco. Ziarlin, As a Man Thinketh. I think this is a book I haven't read, but I've read the notes on it. Collectiver, why do you ascribe these needs to Frankl, not to Maslow? Mainly because I'm thinking on my feet, and Frankl did have some needs. Tony Robbins has a structure that he pushes. Maslow has the pyramid. I think those needs they were already there, they just categorized them. But yeah, Abraham Maslow, the triangle, the Maslow thing of the hierarchy of needs. So collectiver, maybe you are correct that Maslow is the one that should be ascribed this triangle. Javier, as a volunteer, I do confirm the return we receive is by far higher than we give. And I think the really important thing is it has to be volunteering as an act of giving. If there's any sense that I'm owed something in this transaction, you're not a volunteer. You're a cheap transaction person. The volunteering, the way we give, it must be an act of freely giving of it. And sometimes, let's go back to our chat cam on this idea of freely giving, and it's a really difficult one. And I think, again, this book, The Anatomy of Peace, captures the degree to which we are very devious in the gifts that we give. And one of the devious gifts that I know I give is I will say to my daughter, Ali, I love you, and I'll wait. And I realize I wasn't saying it as a gift from me to her. I'm fishing. I'm fishing to hear her words back to me. And I know I haven't given it as an act of love because I notice I'm disappointed that it didn't come back. So that's not an act of love. That's me fishing because in my emptiness, I want her to tell me some words that will give me a boost. That's not an act of love. That's a transaction. So I need to know that if I say I love you, it's an act of, no matter what you say, no matter what you do with it, it's an act coming truly from me. Another way of getting it is, imagine I had 2 tickets to a U2 concert. Sold out concert, there's no tickets, and those 2 tickets, I learned that you, listener, love U2, didn't get tickets, and I give them to you as a gift. And I give them to you as a gift. You take them and you pull a fire lighter or a match out of your pocket, you put it on fire and you burn the tickets. If I've given you the tickets as a gift, those are your tickets. I feel no emotion regarding, other than thinking you're a fool for burning the tickets, but they're not my tickets that I gave you being burnt. They're your tickets that you're free to do what you wish with. And that's a very difficult stance to take in life, because I guarantee if I gave you 2 U2 tickets and you burnt them, I would say, how dare you? I gave you those for you to use. So I gave it with a condition. I didn't give freely. And there's so many things in life where I think I'm giving a gift, but I realize I'm giving with an expectation. I'm giving where I have a hidden sense of what you must give back to me for this transaction to be fair. And that's not a gift. That's not an act of love. And one of the meditations in my book in the evening is, how many times in the day have I given something that I pretended was a gift, but it wasn't? It was a trade. It was a transaction. I was looking for something to come back. And I've blamed you and I've got angry for you because I had an expectation of how you would respond to my act. It wasn't an act of love. It was an act fishing for a response, fishing for you to fill a hole in me. And this idea of volunteering needs to be an act that I give freely. I'm not waiting to be told thank you. I'm not waiting to be told, wow, what a great person you are. I'm freely giving. If that comes back, that's good, but it doesn't make it right or make it wrong. The act of giving is an act of love in and of itself. Now, if I give to you 10 times and each time nothing comes back from you, maybe I'm going to take a decision. I'm not angry with you, but I'm going to decide that I'm not going to choose to give my energy to you anymore. But I don't feel any anger or frustration. If I feel anger or frustration, it's because I had expectations about how you would respond to my acts. And to me, another course that I've spoken a bit about, Dr. John Demartini, the Breakthrough Experience, was a 2-day course I did in London with my friend David Thomas. I've done it 2 times. And when I did it back in 2009, I went in as an angry, bitter, frustrated person with a lot of expectations over what other people owed to me. I came out of that course realizing how often I'm cheating others by putting expectations on them that I'm not letting them know that they have. And my acts are not clean. My acts of giving are not giving, they're transacting. and I'm pushing you into a position where if you don't respond in the way that I want, I now get angry with you and I blame you for causing me to have this feeling. Since 2009, I've become very aware of this way of thinking in my mind, and it's a very important distinction whether what I did was a transaction or a gift. Only a gift is an act of love. A transaction is commerce. And there's plenty of areas in our life where commerce is the way it works. And when a business deal is done, there's a contract that agrees, I expect you to do this in return for this set of work. That's not an act of love, that's commerce. If that's how you run a family, then there's an underlying culture and base and values around what is a loving home, a loving family that need to be worked on so that the expectations are clear between us. So we're coming up to the last few minutes. Let's switch back to chat cam here. I haven't been scrolling down in the camera. Nicole from Romania, hey, great to have you here. Khalif, thank you very much. Florian, U2. Now, Florian, if I did have 2 U2 tickets, well, I'd buy 4 anyway. You and Rose would definitely get those, and I'm pretty sure you wouldn't take a fire and burn them up. And Florian, I hope to see you back on Livestream soon. So it's, hey Jamie, great to see you. California, how is everything there in California? Marcelo, Brazil. Leaders should say, I don't know. I think in a speech, perhaps not. The I don't know is about a humility in our attitude towards life. I watched let me switch back to chat cam for this. So I was on this idea of I don't know as a leader. I watched a webinar this week with Stuart Lancaster, and for those that don't know rugby, Stuart Lancaster was the coach of the England rugby team. He had a bit of a struggle. He had a real tough time as the coach of the England rugby team. And after that, he is now one of the co-coaches of the Leinster rugby team, which is my rugby team in Ireland, one of the 4 kingdoms of Ireland, the 4 provinces of Ireland, Leinster. And Stuart Lancaster was a school teacher, rugby coach, and then he went on to be the coach of the English team. And he shared a story about how to lead. And one of the things that he put, it was a graph about a great leader, be here, and there was 2 axes. One was extremely competent. Everything you do it with an excellence. And the other graph was humility. So I'm totally open, curious, humble, believing I don't have all the answers. I'm a real expert, but I don't believe I have all the answers. And it's very often, when you find someone who has extreme competence, they become arrogant and judgmental of others who don't know as much as them. And what Stuart Lancaster was saying, as a leader, you've got to find a way of being extremely competent, knowing a lot about the things that you should know about, but remaining open and curious to other perspectives, others' point of view. And when someone says something that you don't understand, instead of calling them an idiot, asking yourself, what in what they're saying is possibly true? What are they seeing that I'm not seeing? What are they looking at that I'm not looking at? What perspective are they seeing that would lead a rational, honest people to take that stance? And I truly believe that nobody actively does an act that is stupid from their point of view. But if they're looking at different things, if they're evaluating their action in a different set of context than you, if you understand the way they're seeing the world, their act stops becoming stupid and entirely reasonable based on what they are seeing. And this stance, and I guess this book again is about this stance towards the world, that I don't have all the answers. I have my set of values, which are not the set of values. And it's very important that I get to know your set of values. I get to know my daughter's set of values, how they approach things, what they value, what's important for them in any particular thing, because it's probably going to be different than mine. And if I assume that what you're trying to maximize is the same set of things that I'm trying to maximize, then we're going to have an argument. There's a wonderful metaphor, and going back to these stories where you strip out the details and go down to the core of the story, about negotiation. And the Getting to Yes. Roger Fisher. So Roger Fisher in the book Getting to Yes shares a story. There's two boys and they're fighting. And they're fighting because there's one orange and they each want the orange. And they're fighting and neither of them is strong enough to win, so they exhaust themselves out. They finally agree. They both want the orange, so they agree the only reasonable option is to cut it in half, and one takes one half and the other takes one half. And one boy takes his half of the orange, he pulls the peel off and he eats the pulp of the orange. The other boy takes his orange, he goes home to his mum who's making marmalade, he takes the peel off, he throws away the pulp and he gives his mum the peel to put into the marmalade mixture. And what those two boys achieved was to lose an entire orange. Because in essence, if they'd understood what the other really wanted, there were two oranges. Because the boy who wanted the orange to give to his mum to make marmalade, he could have had the whole skin. The boy who wanted to eat the orange could have had the whole orange and given away the skin. But because they didn't stop to understand what the other truly valued, they destroyed a whole orange in the transaction. And it's not that I don't know is an answer, but that however much you know, you have to keep a gap open to that there's still more that I can learn, there's still more perspectives that can help me see things. Because when you believe that you know, you shut down your questions. The type of questions you ask are different. I think we've got 2 minutes now. I'm trying to think, can I tell the wheelbarrow story in that time? I'm going to tell you the wheelbarrow story on the idea of really keeping yourself in this space of I don't know, that there's still more perspectives that I can gain from. So back 20 years ago, there was a group, a tribe in Borneo discovered for the first time. They had no previous connection with the outside world. And a group of psychologists brought 6 of this Bornean hill tribe down to Singapore to show them the city, to show them civilization. And they were a week. They saw the airport, they saw skyscrapers, they saw supermarkets, they saw farms, they saw the home, the fridges, the ovens, the cooking. And after a week in Singapore, they returned back up to their mountain village. And on the last piece of the track driving up to the mountains to leave this Bornean hill tribe back where they lived, one of the psychologists asked them, what really stuck with you? What really impressed you from those days in Singapore? And the 6 members of the Bornean hill tribe were very excitedly speaking amongst each other. They'd clearly seen something that struck them. And when they finally agreed, they turned and they told the psychologists, the wheelbarrow. The one thing that they'd seen in Singapore that solved an immediate problem that they had was the wheelbarrow. Everything else just went over their head. The skyscraper, it didn't have any context in their mind to fit. It was just a big tree. The only thing that truly solved something that was just at their next level of what they needed to solve was the wheelbarrow. And they were heading up to their village thinking, we have seen paradise. All of our historic generations carrying weights on their shoulders. From now forward, all of time, we will never again have to carry great weight on our shoulders. We have seen the wheelbarrow. And I believe that when I'm speaking to Warren Buffett, if I had the luck of speaking to him, if he was to tell me in his language how to invest, most of it for me would be like me being someone from the Bornean hill tribe looking at Singapore, just going over my head. It's so far beyond my current capability of understanding that it just goes over my head. And when I do work with groups of entrepreneurs, groups of leaders, one of the processes what we work on in the groups is becoming open to how massive the zone of all the things that you don't know really is. So that idea, let's go back for the last minute here. Colchinor, you are my teacher. That is very kind words. I don't, and again, Marcelo on I don't know. It's not that you say the words I don't know, it's that you have the stance that there's always something more that you could learn. Julio Villasola, I will remember Leinster to lose as long as I live. In fact, if you go to the Leinster ground, there is a statue of the try that was scored in front of us by Leinster in the last minutes to win the game. The first time one of the Irish top teams beat one of the top French teams in the rugby, the Champions League equivalent of rugby. Julio, that was one great trip. So we're going to come down to the end here. I would love, as we finish off, if you just stuck in the chat one word. What would you say is your state of mind, your feeling on this Friday evening in Barcelona as we're coming to an end? One word into the chat. What's the emotion that you find inside yourself as we move out into this weekend? And I'd love to see some of your words there coming into the chat. I'm going to have a quick look at our statistics. We've had 100 concurrent viewers. So this has been a great Friday evening. We've got a thumbs up from Marcelo. A hello from Akh from Iran. Mutaz, big thanks. Rose, so great to have you here. Can't wait to get out to Can Traver for another great dinner in that wonderful restaurant near you up in the mountains behind Barcelona. Alexander, gratitude. Julio, definitely, we're going to go to Ireland. There's some great surfing in the west of Ireland. I hope you'll be looking at the west of Ireland for your next surfing expedition. Maximilian, energetic. Just, inspired. Collectiver, muy bien. Mohammed, great. Joachim, confidence. Oleski, inspiration. Omir, motivated. Reino, wheelbarrow. What's wheelbarrow in Finnish? Harshad, hey, great to have you on here, Harshad. I hope your journaling is going well, Harshad. Lancelot, giving. Michael, blinded by statistics. Ooh, Oscar, reflection. Zilin, the law service. Julio, hopeful. Parshant, inspired. Dr. Parshant, thank you for being with us. Arturus, relaxation. Eclectic videos, good lesson. Mohammed, Antonio, Mozambique. Vika, hey Vika, congratulations on getting certified as a coach. So Vika has just become certified as a coach and is going to make a huge difference in many leaders' life as a coach. Mohammed, great to have you. Siren, ignore you. Yuka, fully charged. Jordi, tired, yeah. It's important to recognize sometimes the word is not a positive one. We're not in a good place and we need to take time to refill our own battery levels. Alessio, great to have you. Ernest, growth. Yogin, refreshing. Wahida, motivation times 10,000. Nuria, gratitude. Mohammed, the power of habits. Ethan, gratitude. Ethan, looking forward to reconnect with the Sharing the Light group. I think next Friday. Thank you for being part of that and being part of keeping us inspired. Nadim, great to have you, Nadim. Yaga, inspiration. Sir Bravo, motivation. Jordi, inspiring. Hassad from North Carolina. Hopeful. Marcelo, passion. Mohammed, inspiring. Muy buenas ideas. Con esto llegamos al final. With that, we're coming to our end. I'm gonna end our stream in 3, 2, 1. Gratitude to all of you. Have a great weekend.